Hello and welcome. This is a training module from Oasis&Brooks Ltd, and today we are diving deep into one of the most powerful concepts from the Babok Guide, perspectives. Now, you can think of these as different lenses, different ways for business analysts like us to see problems more clearly, to really focus our efforts and, most importantly, deliver real value. So, let's get right into it.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why perspective is so incredibly important in the first place. Then, we're going to walk through each of the 5 Babok perspectives one by one and use some real-world case studies to really see how they work in action.
All right, first up, let's set the stage. Because, the lens you choose to look through, it dramatically changes what you see and ultimately how you solve a problem. Have you ever wondered about this? I mean, think about it. You can have an IT team, a marketing team, and a strategy team all looking at the exact same business challenge, but they'll come back with wildly different solutions. So why does that happen? Well, it's because they're all using a different perspective. So let's get official for a second and look at the Babok definition. A perspective, it's not just a casual point of view. It's really a framework. It's a very deliberate way of focusing your work, and it helps you pick the right tools and techniques for a very specific challenge. It really is all about context. Probably the easiest way to wrap your head around this is with an analogy. Think of it like this. You would never use the blueprint for a giant skyscraper to build a single-family home, right? It just wouldn't make sense. Well, in the same way, you wouldn't use a process improvement perspective when what you really need is a high-level strategic one. Each perspective is simply a different blueprint for success. Okay, let's jump into our very first blueprint, the Agile perspective. This one is probably one of the most popular approaches out there today, and its whole deal is speed, collaboration, and delivering value in small, frequent chunks. Okay, so imagine this scenario. The market is moving fast, and your company is in a race to the finish line. The main driver here isn't getting it perfect on day one. It's all about speed. It's about getting a working product into your users' hands so you can get their feedback and start iterating. This is a classic textbook Agile challenge. So in this kind of situation, the Agile perspective gives you focus. Instead of some massive year-long plan, the team uses something called story decomposition. They break that big payment feature down into tiny, manageable pieces, like enter payment amount or confirm payee. Then they use story mapping to visualize the user's journey, which helps make sure that the most valuable parts get built first. The whole idea is to cut out the waste and get something that works to the customer as fast as humanly possible. All right, next up, we've got the business intelligence perspective, or BI, as you'll often hear it called. This perspective is for those times when the answer isn't about building something new, but it's about finding the hidden truths in the mountain of information you already have. So, let's consider this problem. A big retail company sees a really worrying trend in their numbers, but the why behind it is a total mystery. Is it new local competition? Maybe a marketing campaign that just isn't working? Or could it be supply chain problems? The answer, whatever it is buried somewhere in the data. And this is exactly where the BI perspective really shines. We're not just talking about looking at sales figures in a spreadsheet. That's the easy part. We're talking about diving into all that messy, unstructured data. Things like customer reviews, what people are saying on social media, even local news reports, and then connecting all the dots. The goal is to take all of that noise and find the signal that points to a clear, data-backed decision. Okay, let's pivot to a perspective that is right at the heart of pretty much every modern business: information technology. This one is all about making sure the technology we build or buy is actually serving the goals of the business. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly complex. Here's a super common and often very complicated IT challenge. You've got this shiny new system that's supposed to solve all your problems, but it has to talk to the old, reliable one that's been running the company for decades. Getting those two to work together seamlessly, well, that's a massive technical and business undertaking. So, to tackle this, the IT perspective brings a ton of discipline. The analyst uses systems thinking to map out every single system that could be affected by this change. They define a really tight solution scope to make sure the project doesn't spiral out of control. And through really careful requirements engineering, they make sure the business needs get translated perfectly into technical specs so that the old and new systems can finally shake hands. Okay, now I want you to zoom out with me, way, way out. The business architecture perspective isn't about just one project or one system. Nope. It's about the entire organization and how all its different pieces fit together to hit those big strategic goals.
Think about a massive, incredibly complex initiative like this one. You've got two huge companies trying to become one. How on earth do you combine their different processes, their different technologies, their people, and their strategies into a single, efficient enterprise? This is exactly where you need that enterprise-level blueprint. A really powerful tool for this is the Zachman framework. What it does is it forces you to deconstruct this huge merger by asking some fundamental questions. Things like what data needs to be integrated? How are our processes going to combine? Who is going to be responsible for what? By answering these questions systematically, you start to build a complete blueprint that makes sure every single part of this newly merged company is aligned to the same strategic why.
And for our final perspective, we're going to zoom back in from that huge enterprise level right down to the operational level. Business process management, or BPM, is all about how the work actually gets done, and, more importantly, how to do it better, faster, and with higher quality. Here is a perfect BPM problem. Every single day that a claim sits in a queue is another day a customer is left waiting, and it's another day the company is racking up costs. So the goal is crystal clear: make this process way more efficient without sacrificing any accuracy. BPM uses these very structured, data-driven methods like the DMAIC cycle. So first you define the problem with precision. Then you measure the current process. How long does each step actually take? Next, you analyze all that data to find the real bottlenecks. Based on that analysis, you improve the process by making specific changes. And finally, and this is key, you control the new process to make sure those improvements actually stick. It's a really rigorous, almost scientific approach to making things better. So let's bring this all together and really drive the point home by comparing two of these perspectives side by side. The Agile perspective, right? It's laser focused on a specific product, and its goal is speed and adaptability. The business architecture perspective, on the other hand, is focused on the entire enterprise, and its goal is strategic alignment. See the difference? Neither one is better. They are simply different blueprints for totally different kinds of challenges. And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important question. The next time you're facing a really complex business problem, just take a moment, step back, and ask yourself, what is the right lens to view this through? Because choosing the right perspective, that is the first and arguably the most important step towards a successful outcome.